Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome everybody to Season 2, Episode 80 of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. We give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we help you prevail in your fantasy playoffs for the 2022 NFL season. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is Nick Cap. Nick, we're officially in the playoffs now. Fantasy championships have been decided. Hopefully you've been paid out. Hopefully you won your leagues. And if not, maybe you have a second opportunity here with playoff fantasy. I know not everybody does it, but it is a fun way to, I guess, gamble on the games without gambling on the games if it's not your thing. And it's still a good way to play some fantasy football. So, it gives you something to care about in these playoffs if you don't have a team in it, or if your team gets knocked out in round one. How you feeling heading into the NFL playoffs for any reason?
My team, no expectations prior to the year, expectations midway during the year. Hopes depleted. It's the life of a Knicks fan, a life of a Yankees fan, and of course the life of my beloved New York football team. As for fantasy playoffs, I am in 2 leagues this year. I have one where you pick any 18 players. There's over 120 people that are going to be in that league. The top
18's 10. A lot. Wow.
You play you pick your roster before the playoffs, so I have to put in by this Friday. And I can play any lineup of those 18 players at any point during the postseason. So for each round, I'll set a different lineup each Friday. And then my other league, we have a normal PPR draft, guys. It's best ball. There is no bench. There is no waivers. 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 receiver, 1 tight end, team or defense and team kicker, team quarterback and team kicker. So, for example, 2 years ago, I drafted Drew Brees. I did not get points for Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston. One of them threw a 60-yard touchdown. I did not get the points for it. But this year we changed it. So now any quarterback. So if you took the Dolphins, for example, with Skylar Thompson, you get his points. If Tua came back next week, you get Tua's points.
Interesting.
So, same thing with kicker. Defensive scoring only goes by sacks, turnovers, and like block kicks, touchdowns, things like that. And I am back-to-back champs in this one. So I need to three-peat. This is the only place where I've gotten the best of my girlfriend's grandma. So I do need a three-peat this year because that would, they might have to kick me out of the league because I've only I've won both.
There you go. That's pretty solid. At the moment, I'm only in 1 league. I hope to add a second, but mine is one that I've kind of created. So it's pick any players you want. It's 2 lineups for $50. You pick a quarterback, 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 2 flexes, and a tight end, and that's your lineup for the playoffs. And you get 2 lineups. I won a similar league last year with my friends, thanks to the Cincinnati Bengals. So we will talk about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Nick's team is not in the playoffs. They just fired Mike LaFleur. I'd love your thoughts on that. At some point, that kind of shocked me today. I don't know if it shocked you. My team is in the playoffs. Thank you, Lions. So we're going to get probably, I don't know about smoke, but they were losing by at least 10 on Saturday, but that's okay. My team did exceed every one of my expectations, so I'm pretty happy about that. So there we go. With that said, if it's your first time listening to us, thank you so much. You can find the show on all audio streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. If you'd rather watch and listen to the show, go to our YouTube channel, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this video and any video that you do watch in the future. Keep connecting with us on social media throughout the offseason. PrimeTimeFFPod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, then Facebook and YouTube is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Normally, we'd have about 4 shows during the week plus a live show, but during the offseason, we'll give you 1 episode a week. I will tell you this. We're not going to have a set date. Me and Nick did bust our butts during the season because we had a lot of fun with it, but we also did bust our butts to get you content, on specific days. We're just not going to do that in the off season. We'll kind of do it on a week-to-week basis, depending on what day we're free. But you will get at least 1 episode a week. We still need to talk about the 2022 season, give some awards, talk about our rankings, talk about where we were right, where we were wrong, where we can do better next year. So we'll talk about that over the next few weeks. So we did want to focus at least on playoff fantasy and the NFL playoffs. going into this episode at least. So let's talk about playoff fantasy. And like Nick said, there are a couple different formats that you might do your playoff fantasy on, whether it's a best ball draft, whether it's a pick some guys, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So first off, Nick, let's look at the playoff brackets, because me and you both have brackets here as to who we think kind of makes a Super Bowl. So I'm going to pull up yours first. And I want to ask you this here. You are doing your draft, and then you're also doing the I guess the pick your player. So I want to ask you, like, do you attack these differently? How do you kind of attack them? Just from a bracket standpoint, what kind of players are you targeting at least?
So, in terms of my bracket, I mean, you can see the teams I have here. I don't really think I have anything too shocking on here.
And for the audio listeners out there that aren't watching the YouTube, the bracket is up on the YouTube. We could put these on our social media, but Nick, I want you to kind of describe your bracket at least as well to the audio listeners.
Yeah, I'll walk through the games real quick. So in the AFC, the first round, we have the Bills versus the Dolphins. I have the Bills obviously beating Skylar Thompson. I have the Bengals beating the Ravens. I do think it'll be a close game if Lamar plays, but if not,
I think he may have been ruled out today, or it doesn't sound like he's going to play, but I do.
Yeah, it does not sound optimistic. And then I think the Jags and the Chargers, I don't think it's a coin flip necessarily. I do think the Chargers should win the game, but no one would be surprised if Jacksonville won. I think everybody would be surprised if either of these teams made it to the third round, though. For the second round, that would make it Chiefs-Chargers. I have Chiefs winning that. Bills-Bengals could go either way. But I do have Buffalo. I think the DeMar Hamlin situation and them replaying that game, I think it's going to give them a lot of momentum and a lot of, heartfelt feelings and push them over the top. Then they play Kansas City in what will be a neutral site game. I have Buffalo going to the Super Bowl. So just to speak about this half the bracket before I get to the NFC for your playoffs, for your playoff formats. So for one of mine, the one where it's an actual draft, if I had the 101, I'm taking Josh Allen. I'm not thinking twice about it. You want the guy that's going to put up the most points because it is a best ball format. And no one's going to score more than Josh Allen. Mahomes might have, but he does have one less game guaranteed. And if Buffalo can get past Cincinnati, that's kind of the head scratcher. He will get to the third round. 3 games is good. Even if you took Mahomes or if you took Jalen Hurts as your quarterback, they're not guaranteed that fourth game if Buffalo gets past Kansas City. You have the QB1 on the season getting the most points, getting the most matchups against very low-rated defenses over the totality of the season. So I think that's the 101 for me. The sneaker picks, it's really hard to pick.
We could talk about them throughout the show, I think. If you want to walk through your bracket, and then I think we could probably this show, guys, by the way, is kind of unscripted.
Yeah, it's off the cuff, so
we're kind of going off the cuff. So why don't you describe that other side of your bracket, and then I'll go through mine. Then we could flip back and forth talking either draft or picking your players at that point.
Sure. So then I have San Francisco versus Seattle. I do not expect the Seattle Seahawks to hang in this game. I think Pete Carroll, if you heard his interview this week, expects them to win this game.
Yeah, it was a bad interview, I must say.
San Fran, the only team in the NFC on more than a 2-game winning streak, and it is a 10-game winning streak at the moment. It doesn't get much better momentum than that. Then you have Minnesota versus Giants. Here's the only real upset I have in the first round. I have the Giants moving on. They lost last time they played off a 61-yard field goal. Brian Dable was smart and rested his guys. Kirk Cousins and crew played the first half of the game. Not saying they're going to be exhausted, but Kirk Cousins as well, I do not trust him. And he has not given me a reason to trust him. So
I think it's a 4:00 game as well, if I'm right on that.
It's a playoff game. It's prime time. There's no one that's playing at the same time. That's enough for me to not trust Kirk Cousins. And I think the Vikings could win the game, but I do think that defense, that secondary has been horrendous for the back half of the season. I think they've been bottom 2 in the league. So I think the Giants do pull off the upset there. Then between Dallas and the Buccaneers, I think that's another coin flip game, but I would take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I take the best quarterback that's in the conference. If Tom Brady does not make the Super Bowl this year, by the way, out of the NFC, none of the quarterbacks who are starting have ever been to a Super Bowl or have won multiple playoff games. A little fun fact over there. Second round then would make it Eagles-Giants because they do reseeding. I have the Eagles moving on. They beat them twice this year, both in blowout fashion. I don't see any reason why not to trust the Eagles. I could see Big Blue sneaking the game out, but even if they do, I still don't see enough fantasy upside from most of their guys. And then San Fran versus Tampa. Here's where I think Brady meets his match. I think San Fran has the best roster in all of football right now.
San Fran crushed them a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think San Fran. San Fran, I think, has the best roster in football. I mean, quarterback, of course, is the debate, but he has not lost a game in his entire NFL career, as short as it has been. Brock Purdy, that is. Then you get Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles get outmatched here. San Fran goes to the Super Bowl. This was actually my preseason prediction. I have a bracket that is dated as September 17th or August 17th with this matchup. So I've been riding on this one all year. I'm not changing. And then I do have, as predicted before the year, I think Buffalo will take the crown.
Okay. So I'll put mine up now for you guys. Watching YouTube, you see my bracket. If you're listening on audio, I'll explain it to you. And our brackets are very similar, and I don't honestly love that. I wasn't super set on a couple of these picks so I could have flipped them, but it is okay. So in the AFC here, my one big upset I have here is Jacksonville upsetting the Chargers. My favorite bit is that Justin Herbert can't win big games. This is a pretty big game, a Saturday night game. First round of the playoffs, never won a playoff game. So I love that bit. I don't know how many games that Jacksonville's won in a row now. Is it 6? Is it 5? I'm going to look that up real quick because Jacksonville has gotten very hot towards the tail end here. They've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've won 5 in a row. That includes 2 wins against the Titans, who are a decent kind of team. They beat Dallas in a solid comeback. They beat Knicks, Jets, and they beat the Texans pretty handedly. They also beat the Ravens. I think Lamar played a little bit of that game. But yeah, so I have the Jags upsetting here. I know Mike Williams might not play, which is pretty big for your fantasy lineups here, especially if you're drafting. So we'll speak about that. I feel like the Chargers kind of disappoint, especially from the defensive side. And Travis Etienne may be a sneaky play. If you get 2 games out of him, the Chargers defense is pretty bad against the run, was bad the entire season. So I want to consider that one. I have the Bengals moving on. I don't like that they're playing the Ravens back-to-back because I think it's really tough to beat, a team back-to-back. But without Lamar Jackson, I mean, the talent has to outweigh here. And the Bengals seem to have a pretty big chip on their shoulder, so I don't want to bet against them too much here. I think they're going to beat the Ravens. The Dolphins without Tua is a recipe for disaster. I would avoid all Dolphins players pretty handedly. So moving on, we have Kansas City and Jacksonville. You see Jacksonville putting up a little bit of a fight here, but Kansas City probably wins by at least 10 points. The Bills and the Bengals is just the real crapshoot. And this is where my cynical NFL is rigged mentality kind of comes in. If the NFL is rigged, Damar Hamlin is stepping on a football field, maybe not playing, but he is stepping on a football field at some point. I don't know when, but he might walk out of the tunnel in the Super Bowl. And I'm just saying, if the NFL is rigged in any fashion, like this is the story. When the DVD comes out next year of the Bills Super Bowl, Damar Hamlin is the story. And I hate to put it like that, but I'm just saying it's a really good story. Sports a story, Super Bowl story. It's a story. And the Bengals have a decent story too. Lost Super Bowl this year, reloaded, etc. But Damar Hamlin is either going to make or break the Bills. And it's crazy to say that, but they're either going to rally behind it or they're going to falter because of it. And I didn't see them falter last week against the Patriots. So I don't want to bet against the Damar Hamlin Bills. So I will have the Bills advancing there. I also have the Bills advancing to KC against KC in a neutral site where I could see a lot of those Bills fans traveling. And it's a shame that game would not be in Buffalo. NFC side of things, I love my Seahawks dearly. They played the Niners tough like 3-4 weeks ago, but it's a recipe for disaster. Niners going to move on. That's all I got to say. Vikings at Giants. I am scared about Kirk Cousins, but he's won a couple first-round playoff matchups before. I will trust Kirk Cousins and the talent of that Vikings team. Cowboys and the Bucks, another really tough one to predict. I could see it going either way. I want to take Brady. I really do, so I am taking Brady, but the Cowboys shit the bed last week, so I'm not sure they're going to do it back-to-back weeks. So That puts us at Eagles and the Bucks. So I will have the Eagles advancing here in a rematch from the last playoffs. It's a really good story. Then San Francisco against the Vikings. This is the matchup made in heaven. Recipe disaster, I should say, for Kirk Cousins. Then I have the Eagles at San Francisco, or San Francisco at the Eagles, and I would love to take the Eagles here. I really would, but it looked like Nick Sirianni just got outcoached by Brian Dable like a week ago without Jalen Hurts, with backups in, and with the Giants had backups in, I should say, and they played them really tough. So I feel like they could get outcoached here by Kyle Shanahan. So we're on to the Bills and the Niners. Not, doesn't really matter per se, but again, if I'm playing the DeMar Hamlin story, the Bills are going to win it all. If they're not going to falter with that story, if they don't show that heart and stuff, and if they're not resilient enough, then I think Cincinnati beats them, because Cincinnati's an excellent football team, and the Bills probably don't have the defense to stop them. That might be a game where it's just, last one to get the ball kind of moves on. I think that's the head scratcher here. Kansas City also looks excellent. I don't want to underplay them. Like, they did ring around the rosy against the Raiders. They embarrassed the Raiders with that play. That was embarrassing. So
I actually saw why they did that. And it's because the Raiders did a Wheels on the Bus. The stadium played Wheels on the Bus go round and round when the Raiders beat the Chiefs a couple years ago. So instead of Wheels on the Bus, they did Ring Around the Rosie.
Why do they play Wheels on the Bus?
I have no idea, but I do know one stat which I do love about the Chiefs, which is Patrick Mahomes in his career is 16-0 against his division. That's his division in is either home or road playoff games.
Well, he would play his division this one because Justin Herbert's not going to advance, in my opinion.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm pulling up your bracket again for the audio listeners. I'm pulling up Nick's bracket here. So let's first talk drafting strategy. So how many people are in your league? Let's just use your league as an example.
For my draft, I have 10 people.
What pick do you have? Do you know?
It'll be randomized at the draft, so I'm not sure. Last year I had the 101.
Yeah, the what?
Last year I had the 101.
Okay, so let me ask. So you already said who would take at 101. Who would you take at 1010?
1010? That's tough because I got to think who would be off the board.
As somebody that's never done this before, I feel like I would need to feel safe with a quarterback in my first 10 picks. And if 10 are going, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow are probably going in the top 5. Hurts is probably going in the top 5. That's 4 right there.
So the last 2 years, I won both of them. The big reason I won is you pick the shocking team that goes on that magical Cinderella run.
Yep.
Last year, I had Bengals kicker, which gave me 46 points, which obviously no one was expecting. But the big hit that I had was I had San Fran upsetting the Cowboys in the first round and then beating the Packers in the second round in my pick. So no one expected that to happen, and I had the stack of Debo and Elijah Mitchell. Between those 3 players alone and my 101 pick, where I took Cooper Kupp, who scored the most points in fantasy, between those 4 alone, I won the playoffs.
Who was your quarterback?
I don't. I could pull it up. 2 years ago. Oh no, I remember. I had Brady last year, who only played 2 games.
That's solid. I mean,
and 2 years ago, I had Breeze, who only played 2 games. So the quarterback matters, of course, because you don't want a quarterback that only plays 1-2 games. But if you nail the sleeper pick, like the differentiator, like it literally comes down to who gets the 5th and 6th and 7th guy.
So why don't I ask you this? Let's just do it again. We have no plan here, guys, which is kind of fun. Do a rough top 10. Let's draft right now, me and you.
So if I had the 101, I'd take Josh Allen.
You're the 101, so I'm gonna go 102. Let's draft right now. So you took Josh Allen with 101. I mean, if I look at my board here and you took Allen, I mean, I should take one of these guys and we get 3 games out of here. 3 or 4. I mean, as much as I love Hurts or Mahomes, if I'm looking at my bracket, I'm only getting 2 games out. I think at that point, I mean, I would highly consider Christian McCaffrey, and I am worried about Elijah Mitchell. I am worried about Elijah Mitchell. because he cuts into McCaffrey's workload. But that matchup against Seattle is already a slam dunk. That's going to be an awesome matchup right there. The Vikings, they also give a lot of points to their running backs. The Eagles will probably be a tougher one, but you get 4 games out of McCaffrey. I would consider McCaffrey. But if I had the 2 pick, I think it'd be really hard for me to pass up a quarterback. So as much as I love McCaffrey, I would probably end up taking, depending on how I'm feeling that day, honestly, Hurts, Mahomes, or Burrow. For the sake of this draft, I will take Jalen Hurts, though. So I have Hurts, and you have Allen. So who would you take at the 103 if that's how the draft's going?
I'm assuming I have an entirely different team, right?
Yes, entirely different team.
Okay, so if 2 quarterbacks already went off the board, I would take Mahomes then.
Okay, so you take Mahomes.
Lock up someone with 2 high-power games.
So if I'm the 4th one and I see 3 quarterbacks going, I would take Joe Burrow there. I think he has a chance at playing 3 games, possibly 4. I would take Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Who would you take at 5?
After those 4 quarterbacks, the next quarterback I would really want would be Brock Purdy, but I don't think he's going to go that early, and there is more risk to him, so I would go CMC here.
And I wouldn't mind taking CMC from 2 to 5 either. I think he has that much value. So you took McCaffrey at 5, right? At 5. Okay, so now I'm up at 6. I think here he hasn't been as reliable as I would like him to be. But again, if I have the Bills going to the Super Bowl, I would take Stephon Diggs.
I agree.
It's 4 games out of Stephon Diggs right there. If I want a different player than Stephon Diggs, the only other 2 I would consider at this moment would be Kelsey and Jamar Chase. Where'd you go? Did I do 6? I lost track. Am I 6 or 7?
Yeah, you did 6.
I did 6, so you're at 7 now.
With the 107, if Diggs would have been my next pick.
Yep.
After that, I would probably go Kelsey.
You go Kelsey. I would go Jamar Chase I would for the chance of him playing 3 games with that talent, I would take Jamar Chase at 7.
After that, after you take Chase, I'd probably. I think here's where you see the big fall off in tier, because I think those are clearly the top guys. And then after that, you probably want to lean on another receiver running back that goes deep. So I would probably go Deebo Samuel begrudgingly, but I would take.
You're at 8 right now.
Yes.
So
9.
Oh, you're at 9. So am I 10?
Yep.
So I'm 10. I think I would seriously consider AJ Brown at 10. I mean, I have him going 3 games. Obviously, hasn't played the first one, but just because this is my bracket doesn't mean the Eagles can't make it farther. I would take a real shot at AJ Brown. So I would give AJ Brown a shot at 10.
I think that's fair.
So we did 10 here. Now let's talk a little bit about
sleepers.
You want to do sleepers? Okay, let's do sleepers. So why don't we go through each team here? Well, why don't you do you have a couple sleepers in mind? So I think a sleeper has to be somebody that, you think is going to go far and probably isn't drafted in your first, 2-3 rounds at least.
So I think McCole Hardman for me is the number 1 sleeper.
Okay.
He's coming off the IR. Not a lot of people are really thinking about him as the wide receiver 1, but when he got hurt, he had 4 or 5 consecutive games of double-digit points. He had the highest targets that he's had over a serious span of his career. He did assume the wide receiver 1 role. I know it's still behind Kelsey, but I think McCole Hardman's going to slip in drafts. People aren't going to really be thinking about him. He's someone I love, and he's someone I do want in later rounds. So if people from my leagues are listening, I hope you do not follow that advice, but he's the 1 sleeper I really do want.
Can I say that McKinnon's a sleeper at this point? Is he a sleeper?
I think McKinnon's going to go by the end of the second round.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's not a lot of star power at running back, like Miles Sanders. People,
that whole second round. I mean, I feel like people see Justin Jefferson's name, and they're not waiting 2 rounds.
I would
Jefferson
take McKinnon over Jefferson.
I don't think a majority of people would.
You never know. I don't think Jefferson will make it past the end of the first round because you'll have someone in your league that thinks the Vikings can go on a 2-3 game run.
Well, right. So To me, McKinnon's a sleeper because I think there's a chance he goes far, and I don't think he gets drafted as highly as Nick does, at least.
Do you want me to pull up? I know Fantasy Pros has a rankings for this.
Do they?
Yeah.
Pull it up if you can. I didn't even realize they did.
I have it saved.
Is this for drafting, or is this like just playoff
So
fantasy?
they leave their rest of season rankings up, and some of them, not all the analysts do it. So you're not going to get the usual Fantasy Pros like at the beginning of the week. Only one of the members of the 120 experts put theirs in, and Dawson Knox winded up being the highest rated tight end. Like that's not going to happen,
right?
Let me see if I can find it because I did email it to myself.
Sure. So I'll give you a sleeper here, and I think it's Tony Pollard. I think he's a sleeper, not because of his talent, not because of what he's done. Because again, if you're thinking that you have to draft people that are going to go, 3 rounds here, 3 rounds meaning 3 games, I think a lot of people either expect the Cowboys to possibly lose Monday or not make it past the second round. I think the Cowboys are a playoff choking team, but I also think they're really talented and they have the chance to go 3 games. Whereas I don't see the Giants going, like I would bet against the Giants winning 2 games. I would bet against the Seahawks winning 2 games. I would bet against the Vikings winning 2 games. I wouldn't bet against the Cowboys winning 2 games because I think it's possible. So any team to me that's either a 1 and done possible or 2 and done to me has sleeper potential. So to me, like Tony Pollard's a sleeper, ETN's a sleeper. I think another sleeper here could be Zay Jones, really, really deep sleeper. If you just, if you're drafting, I think Zay Jones is an awesome sleeper. I think to me, those are your big sleepers. Another one is Brandon Ayuk. If you have the Niners going to the Super Bowl, and you're drafting and later on in the rounds, I think Ayuk kind of gets forgotten.
I think that's fair.
Any other names you may want to highlight or mention before we kind of move on to maybe the lineups that we're looking at?
I think Darius Slayton is another one to keep your eyes out on. Even if he does get 1 game, and you will have someone on your roster that only plays 1 game, it's going up against the worst secondary that's in the playoffs. And if they do lose to the Vikings, it will be because they are playing from behind for the majority of the game, and they will have to pass a lot.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let us move on to the other format that people use, which is just, using a roster. Me and Nick's roster is a little bit different in the leagues that we're doing. So I'll explain mine here. Mine's 2 quarterback, 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 2 flex, and a tight end. We get 2 lineups for our $50 buy-in. And what is yours? Is yours one team per buy-in, or how does yours work?
Mine is $50 buy-in. Top 2 get paid out. I think it's 450, 150.
Okay. Did you create your roster yet, or rosters? Any of them?
No.
Okay. So you know what? I'm just gonna do it for fun here. I mean, I could always change mine before Sunday. So I'm gonna go roster 1. I'm gonna go all in on the Bills with this one. So Allen's gonna get a spot. Diggs is gonna get a spot for sure. Then I want to stack it up here with the 49ers. So CMC. I really like Kittle, so Kittle's going to be my tight end in this one. And then I probably want to, let's see.
I did pull up Fantasy Pros rankings if you do want to hear their top 10.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So they do not have Josh Allen up until the 33rd pick in the draft.
Who's the top 10? Let's hear it.
Notable. The top 10 is CMC 1, Eckler 2, Mixon 3, Diggs 4, Chase 5, McKinnon 6, AJ Brown 7, Justin Jefferson 8, Miles Sanders 9, and Devontae Smith at 10.
Interesting.
I'll send you these rankings as well.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I'm actually going through and just filling out a quick lineup, and this is definitely going to change. So in this first lineup here, I'm going 2 49ers here at McCaffrey and Kittle. Again, hoping to get 3 games out. I'm putting Allen and Diggs together. Again, hoping to get 3-4 games out here. I did put Jalen Hurts in here. And then I think I'm going to put leaves me a wide receiver, running back, flex, and flex. So this is where I want to try to get like 2 games out of each of my players.
I think another thing I like to think of when I'm drafting for my actual draft is the guys I want in the first round. I want to know I'm getting 3 games out of them, or be confident I'm getting 3 games out of them.
Yeah.
If not, you're going for who's your guaranteed 2. So if I'm in my later round picks or my mid round picks, I would not touch the Jacksonville game and the Chargers game, and I would not touch Jacksonville's game, the Cowboys game, and I wouldn't touch the Vikings game. I
Yep.
want the 3 that I think are a lock for the win. Those are the guys I'm drafting in the mid rounds, and in the late rounds, then you draft your stars that fell.
Yeah.
So if Saquon Barkley winds up in the 5th round, that's a very good value pick. If CeeDee Lamb slips to 4, or Chris Godwin, Mike Evans slip to 4, you're going to see somebody around there. That's who you got to pull the trigger on.
Yeah. No, I think that totally makes a lot of sense here. Let's see. Who do I want to flex here? Let's flex Gabe Davis, because again, I think I'm getting 4 games out. If you want, you could fill out, one of your teams or whatever, just for fun. I'll go AJ Brown. Need one more running back, one more flex. So let's see. I think I get McKinnon at least 2 with a chance of 3. Or do I want to do McKinnon down there? Do I want to triple up? How much stacking do you like to do in these teams?
I'll always stack the guys that I think have 3 in them. So
Yeah.
I think that's another big key. Like, don't try and be too conservative. Like, you're not going to win. Someone in your league is going to take 3 Buffalo Bills. Someone in your league is going to go take 3 Eagles. Someone in your team will take 4 guys from San Francisco. Like, that's going to be the lineup that wins.
Yeah.
The guys that do take those stacks, because 4 games of Deebo Samuel is a hell of a lot more points than 2 games from Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. So this is one lineup that I'm working with right now. I have Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, McCaffrey, Gabe Davis, and Kittle. So I am banking on the Bills here, and then I'm banking on either the Bills or the 49ers making the Super Bowl on the other side. And I still have a running back and a flex to fit in here. And if I really want to bank on Eagles and Niners, I could always flex, Miles Sanders, and then I could flex, Debo. That might be the lineup that I roll with there. So I'll save that for now. My other lineup, I want to get Burrow and Mahomes in here, but I don't know. Then I'm sacrificing an NFC quarterback here. For my skill positions at the moment, I have Jamar Chase, I have McKinnon, and I have Kelsey. If I do want to go all in on the Bengals, I could either put T. Higgins, or I could put, Mixon at running back, or I could flip one of those out. So those are the 2 lineups I'm kind of working at the moment, and I'll probably tweak them a little bit, but that's kind of what I'm working at the moment.
I think Devontae Smith, after seeing him high in the rankings, like, he's someone I do think is going to fall a little bit, because he was really good at the end of the year.
He was wide receiver 9 in fantasy football.
And I think a lot of people are going to overlook him because he is the wide receiver 2 on a team that is already guaranteed to not have 4. I do think he's going to miss out on that.
Yeah. AJ Brown finished 6 and Devontae Smith finished 9. So both finished, pretty highly at least. So I want to give you an opportunity to kind of say anything else you may want to say. I went through a quick lineup here. I'll probably decide on my lineup on Saturday. I'm a tinkerer, so I'm probably tinker a little bit, but if there's anything else you may want to point out, I'll give you the floor here.
Yeah. Like I said, the big thing is go get your guys that are going to give you 3, like make brackets like me and Nick did. Like, don't just say, I think the Bengals could go on a run. Like, you need to be aware the Cincinnati is almost all but guaranteed to play Buffalo in the second round of the playoffs.
Yep.
You need to know that there's a good shot that they don't move on. And the same thing could be said for the Bills. If you're confident the Bengals are going to go smoke Buffalo, don't touch the Buffalo players. Everybody's going to be drafting Josh Allen. Everyone's going to want a piece of him in their lineup, and he's only got the 2. Like, go take it.
I think the AFC is so hard to predict right now. Where the NFC, again, I think the NFC relies on Brock Purdy, if I'm being honest with you. If Brock Purdy craps the bed, they're out. Like I love my Seahawks. Do I think they're going to win? No. Would I bank on it? No. But if Brock Purdy craps the bed against Pete Carroll's defense, they could be a one and done. And I'm not saying they will, but again, against the Bucks, that's Tom Brady. That's the playoffs. Against the Cowboys, that's Micah Parsons on the other side. So I'm just saying, I think the NFC entire playoffs relies on Brock Purdy. And here's another thing. If Brock Purdy craps the bed and never sees the Eagles, I think the Eagles cakewalk in here. I don't think there's a team that's going to beat the Eagles. So
the only team there's one thing that I would be fearful of if I am the Eagles outside of San Fran, and that would be the winner of the Cowboys and Bucks matchup. Because I do not want to face Tom Brady after he had rest last week. He's going to have momentum beating Dallas, or
right.
you're going to have Dallas coming off a massive win against the Buccaneers when Dallas did just beat the Eagles.
Well, if for the only way that the Eagles play one of them, I believe
You need the Vikings and San Fran to win. That's how they'd face in the first round.
Yeah.
If they then they would not see them in the conference finals unless if the Giants pull off the upset.
Yeah, if the Cowboys or the Bucks make it to the conference finals against the Eagles, it'll be a game. But again, I think the Eagles' biggest threat is San Fran. So if I'm picking a lineup, I am loading up on Eagles or 49ers. You probably can't load up on both, but if you have two teams like I do, pick one lineup to load up on the Eagles, one lineup to load up on 49ers, and the other side, you got to pick two AFC teams that you trust. And there's three really freaking good football teams. The Bengals are 3-0 against Kansas City in the last year. The Bills and the Bengals looked like they were set up for a really good one, and obviously it didn't get to happen. Buffalo, did Buffalo beat Kansas City this year? I think they did.
Yes, they did.
And they had an awesome matchup last year, but Kansas City's firing on all cylinders. So I can't tell you what the right answer is. Honestly, this is a trust your gut and load up on players that you like. So that's the best advice that I could give, at least.
If you do have a league like my other league where you do have a bench, like go load up on a couple of those sleeper guys, because those are going to be the guys that differentiate. Like I have 120 people in this league.
Yeah.
Every single, like there is going to be at least 20 to 50% of the league that has, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts on the roster because of how deep the bench is. And they're just going to say, I'm going to go get 4 matchups for my quarterback.
Yep. And there's also like always that random player in the Super Bowl that shows out. So, if you could find that sleeper player, like again, if it's Kansas City, you pick like Mecole Hardman, maybe he has 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Damian Williams had it a couple of years ago for Kansas City and probably won playoff leagues. The 49ers, there's a chance Elijah Mitchell has 4 Super Bowl touchdowns. Like it's a thing.
Possible.
So anyway, I think we can kind of wrap it up there. So, thank you guys for listening to this one and for bearing with us and letting us ramble and talk. This is just totally off the cuff. Just talking football, talking playoff fantasy. It kind of is a crapshoot, but it's trust your gut here. Like we said, with fantasy in general, but trust your gut. Because again, we could be totally wrong, and Skylar Thompson can go beat Buffalo this Sunday. As crazy as that sounds.
If that happens, my God. Yeah. Everything's in
So anyway, thank you guys for listening. You can find our show every week, once a week on audio streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. You can find us on YouTube, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Make sure to subscribe and like any video on our channel. We'd appreciate that. Keep connecting with us on social media all off-season. PrimeTimeFFPod, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for listening, guys. Enjoy the playoffs this weekend. Best of luck in your drafts or, in setting your lineups, and have fun watching round 1, the wild card weekend.